The Baltimore Ravens finished the 2021 regular season with a losing record for the first time since 2015, and like in 2015, a lot of their team was injured, and by season's end, to give you an idea of how down bad they were, they had a quarterback head-to-head matchup of Josh Johnson against Joe Burrow, and had corners like Kevon Seymour and Brandon Stevens guarding Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. It's pretty safe to say who won that matchup, and the Ravens finished the year on a 6-game losing streak and lost 7 of their final 9 games. And if you think the Ravens are going to be similar to the team that stumbled to the 2021 finish line, well, you'll be in for a pretty big surprise, as Baltimore can go as far as they want to this year. And in today's video, we are going to break everything down, and without further ado, let's begin. And we are starting today's video by glancing over the start of the 2022 Baltimore Ravens schedule. Whether Zach Wilson is healthy by then after the preseason Week 1 injury, which is believed to be at this point in time a bone bruise, to me at least doesn't matter when choosing the winner of this game. The Ravens have a better team, and it would be cool to see Joe Flacco play his former team, but across the board the Ravens are better than the Jets. Period. As for Week 2 against the Dolphins, this has been one the Ravens have had circled on their calendars since the schedule came out in May, not because the Dolphins are an elite top-tier team in the AFC, but for how they embarrassed the hell out of them last year on Thursday Night Football in front of the entire country. This was very much the start to the downfall of the 2021 Ravens, and injuries played a very big part in that as well, but this game was truly awful for Baltimore. I do believe they will start out 2-0 and get their revenge against Miami. I don't think it will be an easy win, but I do think they will get the job done. And we're not going to break every single game down, but it's not unreasonable for the Ravens to start out 3-1 or 4-0. Buffalo is a very good team, yes, but they are not unbeatable. No team is, and there's a reason it is any given Sunday. And for all of the top tier teams in the AFC, like the Buffaloes, Kansas Cities, Cincinnatis, and everyone else, Baltimore is pretty well equipped to try and stop all of these offensive juggernauts the AFC has to offer. The NFL rules now greatly favor the offense, so that's not to say the Ravens' defense is going to be the 2000 version of themselves, but when you have a defense, and more specifically, a secondary with players like Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters, Kyle Fuller, Marcus Williams, and Kyle Hamilton, you're in pretty good hands. And again, yes, these players will get beat at times in 2022, as going up against Jamar Chase, Stephon Diggs, and everyone else they will play this year, surely those guys will get the best of the Ravens secondary at least once. But the Ravens' front seven is pretty solid as well, and they are very glad to have the big man in the middle back in Michael Pierce after starting his career in Baltimore, followed by a 2-year stint in Minnesota. Second-year player Odafe Oweh had a solid rookie season, all things considered, and he is a big breakout candidate for multiple reasons. The first, of course, is his natural ability, and we saw it flash at times in big ways in 2021, most notably forcing the game-winning fumble against the Chiefs and then recovering in Week 2 to seal the Ravens' win and finally beating Patrick Mahomes and company. The other is, and this hasn't been talked about in the media, but when the secondary is playing lights out and when those guys are clicking back there, what do you think will happen up front? Coverage sacks will start to be more and more frequent, and Odafe will be a big beneficiary of that lethal secondary. Now, that doesn't mean every single sack he has, or pressure for that matter, will be because of the guys in coverage, but they will go hand in hand and mutually benefit another. And in turn, I would also expect it to work the other way around, where the opposing quarterback knows pre-snap Odafe is coming hot off the edge and tries to force a pass quickly, only for the ball hawk Marcus Peters to jump a route and get a pick 6 or 2. And for all of the offenses the AFC has, I absolutely love what the Ravens have done to try and stop each and every one of them. As for the offensive side of the football, I know the immediate thought when you think of the Baltimore Ravens is they don't have a true number one receiver or man, Rashad Bateman is really going to have to step up this year, and both of those things can be true. And every sign points to the Ravens not only running the ball more, because inevitably that will happen, but they will be a more efficient team when throwing the football. Lamar Jackson, like every player in the NFL, from the best player to the worst player, has his flaws. And Lamar will never be a 4,500 yard, 40 passing touchdown player. But the most important thing to remember here is that's fine. Tom Brady has never had 400 rushing yards and 8 rushing touchdowns in a season, and has turned out pretty good, I would say. And Lamar is an MVP winning quarterback. He is a unicorn at the quarterback position because, quite frankly, there's a tremendous amount of things he can do that other guys simply can't. And having mentioned the lack of number one receiver, this will change how the Ravens operate in 2022. Lamar in 2021 had a down year to begin with from a passing standpoint, and his play in a lot of ways represented most, but not all, of the Ravens roster. Good or great players that unfortunately had a down year. And another reason why the Ravens will generally not throw the ball deep downfield is Lamar's numbers fall off in a big way when throwing the ball 20 plus yards from the line of scrimmage. These are according to Pro Football Focus, and Lamar was just 18 of 54 last year with 5 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. And I realize how bad 18 of 54 sounds, and it is just a 33.3% completion rate, and it is bad, don't get me wrong, but for some context, the league MVP Aaron Rodgers was 27 of 69, nice, with 6 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, which translates to him completing just 39% of his targets, 20 or more yards from the line of scrimmage. And taking a deep shot usually only happens once or twice, maybe 3 times a game, but the Ravens drafted multiple tight ends this year, and they didn't draft those guys to replace Mark Andrews. They drafted those guys to play more 23 personnel, which is 2 running backs on the field and 3 tight ends with no receivers, or 22 personnel, which is 2 backs, 2 tight ends, and a receiver. The Ravens, of course, still have Pat Ricard, who is a 330-pound fullback, and the Ravens' offensive game plan heading into 2022 is pretty simple. They're going to outpower you with a big offensive line and have what is essentially an extra lineman in Ricard block for them, and then have Nick Boyle, who is a very good blocking tight end block as well, and then have the Gus Bus, which is Gus Edwards for those that may not know, run straight at you as a 225 plus pound back and essentially say, stop this. They also have J.K. Dobbins, who is very good as well. And over the course of a game, this will wear the shit out of opponents, and then if you slip up for a second, they have a quarterback who runs a 4.3 40 that can and will take it the distance. So just because the Ravens don't have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, or Jamar and T. Higgins, or Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis on their offense, I don't worry even for a second that they can't hang with those teams in the AFC, and in fact, I believe they will be one of the most efficient offenses in the entire NFL. And because of all of this, the Ravens can truly go as far as they want in 2022. I know the concern a lot of people will understandably have with Baltimore is being able to hang with the elite offenses. But this is the same team who put up 34 points against the Chargers last year on just 27 passing attempts. This is the same team who put up 36 points against the Chiefs last year on just 26 passing attempts. And this offense still had 2 1,000-yard receivers last year in Mark Andrews and Hollywood Brown. Having Lamar Jackson as their quarterback changes everything because game planning is going to be drastically different than how teams with more pocket-centric quarterbacks prepare. But even when the Ravens were a very injured team down the stretch of the 2021 season, they lost by a singular point to the Packers, who were the number 1 seed in the NFC. That was with a backup quarterback, and they also lost by a singular point to the Rams, who, as we know, were the eventual Super Bowl champions. Again, both games were with a backup quarterback. John Harbaugh has been one of the most successful head coaches over the past decade and a half, and players absolutely love playing for him. And that's not going to change from last year to this year. The Ravens have a Week 10 bye, and looking at the rest of the schedule coming off of the bye, out of these 8 games, how many do you think they're going to lose? And I get every game will be played, but looking at this now, I don't think it's unreasonable to say they go 6-2 during this stretch. The unfortunate reality for Baltimore is that Week 18 game against Cincinnati could very much decide the division, but the previous few games leading up to that are at Cleveland, home against Atlanta, and home against the Steelers. And if, and this is a big if, but if Baltimore wins that Week 18 game in Cincy, then there's a chance they enter the postseason coming off of a 3 or 4 game win streak, and as we know in January, and as Baltimore fans know, anything can happen in the postseason. And with that being said, that's all I have for today. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, now is the time I ask you to please leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as it would both mean the world and help out with the YouTube algorithm. And until next time, as always, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.